This is the Anycubic we want to see. Don't get me wrong, this isn't a perfect product, but Anycubic have done so much right here that it would be hard to even imagine them taking another step backwards, something they have done previously following the launch of the M3 Premium, a printer that was so incredibly good, I will not stop going on about it until they surpass it. And this is the closest they've been in nearly 2 years. Not only is this a machine that has genuinely surprised me with its quality and features, but it genuinely excites me too for what Anycubic will bring us in the future, so long as this is now the bar they've set for themselves. But as I said, it's not perfect, so let's have a look at the details. Hi, I'm Ross, and this is FauxHammer Videos. Here we are with the Mono M7 Max, Anycubic's new flagship large format printer, and due to its size, it's a little more unwieldy when it comes to unboxing, but thanks to Anycubic's almost patented slide the bloody thing out of the box mechanism, it's still far easier than most for this size. Also, massive happy foam this time. You can get the normal external dimensions off the website as usual, but because this one is the first Anycubic I've seen with a flip over lid, which is awesome to see, you also need to bear in mind that you need about 82 or 83 centimeters in height and about 57 centimeters in depth to actually flip this lid open. If you're in a print farm, however, and you intend to rack mount these, yes, you can just remove the screws from the lid and have this as a mountable detachable faceplate, which can still be held in place by the collars on the tilt mechanism on the sides. Looks wise, this follows the professional stylings of the M7 and Mono 4 range with orange accents, white text and a black lid. Moving on to ports. USB plugs in on the front right side and the Wi-Fi antenna sticks out of the back of the same side. The back of the left side is where the PSU plugs in, and the only port on the back of the machine is an RJ11, which is actually for the data cable for the Resin feed pump, a device I'll talk about later. But we also once again have this proprietary hose outlet in the rear chassis, but this time covered with a rubber bung. I'm still yet to see a device which actually connects to these sockets, so unless someone can tell me an existing hose that would connect to this shape, I can only assume it's for a future Anycubic product. The last external feature worth a mention is the power switch, which is located on the front of the unit below the LCD. I'll come back to the UI later. Now, the thing we need to talk about, or needs to be expressed, is that this is a big printer, and it's very much designed with printing large things in mind. And whilst that will become increasingly obvious as I show it more, so long as your focus is mostly larger things, this is solid. And on that note, the printing dimensions are 298 by 164 by 300 millimeters. Looking at its raw components, we first have the build plate, nice and large with a very basic laser etched checkerboard pattern on the surface rather than the Anycubic pattern we saw on the M7s. This has great adherence, and I genuinely prefer this simpler pattern anyway, as it's much more even. This attaches to the Z-arm by just sliding it on and rotating the large bolt. Now, on this Z-arm, beneath that mounting point, there are also some hooks which allow you to hang the plate rather awkwardly at an angle so resin can drip from the front left corner. Though, as other brands have shown us, a better vat design could actually allow us to mount the plate sideways using the full width of the vat as a drip tray. And that would generally be better, but having this hang in at a slight angle is still better than most. Now, the Z-arm does just have a basic lead screw rather than a ball screw, but it has two very large rails supporting the mechanism, and once again this printer has pressure sensitivity like the rest of their printers from this generation, and I'll go more onto pressure sensitivity and what that means shortly. The vat's really nice, able to hold almost 2 full bottles of resin at a time, though I will need to note that this printer comes with ACF release film that I'll talk about in the print results part of the video. And for once, we actually have a half decent pour spout. Below the vat, we've got the LCD, and this one is only 7K with a resolution of 6480 by 3600 pixels. Now, these square pixels are 46 microns, and whilst this is unfortunately on the larger side of what we've grown accustomed to in many recent printers, the COB light source and Fresnel lens below the screen at least ensure that the printed pixels are incredibly sharp. And the UI of this machine that I mentioned earlier, well, it's Anycubic's latest generation of UI. Everything's incredibly well translated. You've got quick access options down the left-hand side, and you can turn off all of the pressure sensitivity and other advanced features within the menus of the printer. Despite me having some negative things to say about other printers in this generation from Anycubic, the UI has been a standout that really all other brands should try to adhere to. Now, this printer does have some additional features worth noting. First is the resin pump. Now, I haven't used it, I never use these. Once my reviews are done, these printers go into storage. Cleaning out these pump lines is a pain in the arse, and most times, even after cleaning them, they slowly drip resin everywhere. So when you're changing materials, you also have risk of cross-contamination with whatever you had in last. Not a massive problem if you only ever plan to use the same resin over and over. But how they work is simple. It'll only connect to an Anycubic shaped bottle or similar shaped bottle, which I don't have to hand, and this unique bottle cap with the tubes and lines in it needs to be airtight to that bottle. The unit inside the printer will slowly pump resin into the vat, and the handy part is that it'll do it throughout a print too. If you need to empty the vat, it also works the opposite way and slowly takes the resin out, but for me, it's just so much easier to pour resin in the vat manually, and there are much easier ways to draw it out too, including pouring it from the useful spout. And I've asked this on other videos, but I'll ask it again here. Does anybody out there who's used one actually love having a resin pump on their printer? Anyone? I bet less than 10 people comment on this video saying, yes, I love mine. Look, I just think if every brand out there made these an optional add-on, it'd be better for the whole community and keep the costs down for those of us who don't want it, which I feel is most of us. But onto something else that's hotly debated should be an optional add-on. I think it should come with all printers, but I've been told enough times that other people don't want it. So fine, this also should be optional. A heater. This printer comes as standard with a heated vat, and I want to say, finally Anycubic, you did it, and now that you've proved you can do it, please bring this option to every single one of your printers and you're golden. Even if you have to make it an optional add-on, just please bring this to every printer. Please also make NFEP an option at checkout as well, instead of putting ACF on everything. But again, we'll get back to that. Having this heated vat basically ensures that your resin is at optimal temperature throughout your prints, not only ensuring you can have the best results, but also another level which encourages success. Now, something that also elevates the likelihood of success, or at least warns you when you've had a fail in the early stages, Anycubic's advancement in pressure sensing is incredible, and these pressure sensing features are just awesome. Now, they've actually done away with the auto leveling bull that hasn't worked for any brand in the last year, so to level here you will need to loosen the 4 screws on the bed, lower the plate to the bottom position, then hold the plate flat as you steadily tighten these screws in alternating corners incrementally. But once done, the build plate's arm can actually detect when it touches the resin or when it touches the screen, and if there's any obstructions between the plate and the screen when you start a print, it'll detect those too. And for those of us who've resin printed for a while, we've done this. It's happened to us on more than one occasion. But when it has these errors, it'll actually stop the print and warn you on the printer's UI, on the slicer on your computer, and on the phone app. But this pressure sensing also gives it the feature of dynamic lift height. So if the release film fully detaches from a layer before the lift height you've set in the slicer reaches the top, it'll actually start to retract immediately rather than waste time continuing to raise to an arbitrary height that you've set because, well, none of us know what the exact proper value is. And it works the other way too. If it hasn't detached, but you've set a low lift height, it'll continue lifting until it feels the release film detach from the layer. It's absolutely brilliant. And then if for some reason a layer completely fails to attach to the last, the pressure sensing can detect that too and warn you of immediate failure much earlier than the completion time of the print. And as I said, when connected to the Anycubic cloud, all of this can be monitored in the app and the slicer itself. And both the app and the slicer are steadily progressing to be solid, tidy integration tools which genuinely excel Anycubic far beyond all but one of their competitors. One who I'd say they're on par with in terms of smart integrations, but significantly ahead of in terms of affordable price and flexibility of the product. I do need to mention though that the fans in this printer are a bit louder than most, with 60 decibels pumping out of the fan port directly. Now, when it comes to print quality, as I said, even at 46 microns, this printer is sharp. However, at that pixel size, you do lose out on a little bit of quality that you would get from smaller printers, like most of the 10-inch machines released in 2024, such as the M7 and M7 Pro when you swap the ACF film over to PFA. Now, I once again dialed in my exposure time super fast thanks to the RERF feature, which I've shown and explained in a separate video. If you want to know how that works, definitely recommend you check it out. It's a great feature. But anyway, in the output prints, you will still see some small, and I mean small, amount of detail loss when compared to the smaller 12K and 14K machines. And it does make me wish that they'd chosen a 16K display that other brands have chosen in this one, because that addition, coupled with a solid ball screw and maybe the option of PFA release film, would have potentially made this a perfect modern printer from Anycubic, in my humble opinion, and it would have easily dominated the market. And please consider that I am typically one of the more critical reviewers, so in saying that this machine is imperfect is really only saying it's one step shy of being perfect. So let me be 100% clear for anybody who isn't following me right now. This printer is f***ing awesome, in my humble opinion. And when we compare this to the only large format resin printer on the market at the time of recording, which has a 16K display, that one uses a matrix LED light source, so the print quality on that one is a bit softer anyway for the resolution of the screen. The point is, the print quality on this right now is comparable to the best there is for any printer of this size on the market. Then you get all of your smart stuff too, like Wi-Fi monitoring and pressure sensing. Now, before I finish and fully conclude, I need to show off this incredible sculpt by Loot Studios, which is available now as one small but incredibly large part of their December fantasy bundle. I've just finished watching Vox Machina Season 3, and so I was in a dragon printing mood, and this thing is silly big, requiring just short of 5 liters of resin to print, and it still took 10 separate prints on this machine. But look how awesome it is. I've already printed a few of their other models from this set in another review video, and each month comes with miniatures, 75mm models of each, busts, and campaign stuff. I don't play D&D, but you get stuff. So if you like this model, and you're watching this video now in December 2024, in the month I released it, then check out Loot Studios. There's a link in the description. Again, I'm not sponsored for that, but I do make a commission if you sign up. And believe me, I've gone to these guys asking them if I can work with them because I like their models. But I think this print perfectly summarizes what these machines are for. Big things. For people like me into miniatures and models, it would be great for terrain and large statues like this. And for people into statues like, Marvel sculpts and other characters and stuff like that, it would be great to print statues. Now, as I said, this does come with ACF film as standard, so you will see lines on vertical surfaces, which I've shown enough times now. I shouldn't have to keep proving, but here it is again. And you can reduce these by replacing the ACF film with PFA by yourself. But again, as I was saying, this printer is made for big things, and on big things, it is unlikely you'll focus on this surface detail anyway. But generally, no, it's not the absolute best for small miniatures if you're pushing for perfect, because there is some small detail loss in the 46 micron screen, but I honestly expect most people would still say it's easily good enough, because you'll typically only notice that if you're using the sharper resins. Use cheap softer resin and you probably won't tell the difference. The only thing I've got left to have any amount of concern about is Anycubic's recently poor history with underwhelming support, both in terms of online communication and how long after a product's release they will support them for with things like spare parts and such. Now, I genuinely hope through the progress they've shown in the M7 range and the Cobra 3 too, that this is the turning point for them as a brand, but we can only judge that at the end of this generation's life cycle. But after using this, I honestly hope people who are after big printers get this machine, and I hope that they have an incredible experience with it like I've had, and I hope that Anycubic reap the sales of this as a signal of exactly what they should be doing going forward and continue to support and provide parts for this as long as they possibly can, because that's what should have happened with the M3 Premium. Honestly, and for those of you who've watched a lot of my videos, you don't hear me this passionately this often, but this genuinely is a benchmark product that all others in this category should be measured against, and quite possibly is the one standout printer of this whole year, but that's mainly because it has the fewest small and daft issues. It feels like everything this year has had something wrong with it for all the great things it does. This is how you make a 3D printer. I would ask if you're planning on buying one, and this has helped, I would appreciate you clicking my affiliate link in the description before you do. I make a commission at no cost to you, and that's how I fund the channel. I want to say thanks for watching, with a huge thanks going to our members. If you do have any questions about this or any printer that I review in any video, please leave a comment, because I do try and reply to everyone who asks a nice question. I try to ignore the dickheads. Anyway, please consider becoming a member to get your name up in the credits too, along with exclusive videos and Discord roles. But until next time, smoke me a kipper. I'll be back for breakfast. FauxHammer out.